Ladies and gentlemen, this is another exciting episode in the Pacific Lagoon and Pacific Cascades recordings that we've done today. It's an interesting aspect of what we're going to be talking about this morning, I think, is the Pacific Cascades and the engineering in that, both physical and also the technology that was in existence. I just think that's such a great story. So if you can just start out by telling us how you surprised people as they walked around over that big bridge.
Right, okay, yes, well that was certainly an important aspect because the Pacific Lagoon, the lake, was at the upper level and on the western side of the bridge, and then the cascade emerged from underneath the bridge, and then the water gushed down over. There's multiple terraces all the way down and around into a large pond at the bottom, which was in the American forecourt, American Pavilion forecourt. Now, so that was all built out of concrete, specially designed, very carefully designed to maximise the hydraulics of the way the water flowed down the slopes. And it was interesting that we were assisted in making the hydraulics work by a company in Los Angeles, Wet Technologies, WET, Wet Technologies. And when I was over there, they built little models, full-scale models of sections of the cascade, and then they pumped water through it at different volumes so that you got different effects. It was amazing how many different effects you can create in water when you know what you're doing, and whether it's a high volume or a low volume or whatever. And so we got quite a range of different effects there, which was quite interesting. So that gives you a very good idea that we've got the Pacific Lagoon in the background, the people all walking across the bridge there, and then down over the top of the cascade into the precinct outside the US Pavilion. Now, how do we make it interesting? As everybody probably realises, the theme for World Expo 88 is leisure in the age of technology. So I wanted to bring technology into this in as many ways as possible. So it starts at the handrail of the bridge. And you'll notice behind me, there are two jets of about a dozen they're activating there at the moment. They're all controlled by technology, a system called 3DIS. And what it does, it sensitizes without any wires or anything like that. It's all almost invisible. It sensitizes little packets of space along the handrail. Nothing to see, nothing to touch. But if you're leaning on the handrail and you point at something in the cascade, if you happen to go through one of these spaces that are energized, it then causes the fountain jet to erupt up and hit your hand. And that happens all the way along the bridge. So they're all the time going up and down. And same sort of thing happens behind me again there. You can see on the extreme right-hand side, people walking across some stepping stones across the base of the cascade. They were similarly sensitized so that as you walk down those stepping stones, the foaming jets beside you played up and down as you walked along, because some of those flagstones were sensitized and others weren't. So that was an interesting way. And the other way, for the nighttime experience, every single terrace in that cascade had built into it at the time of construction fibre optic cables, which are like thick fishing line. And they were 2 or 3 metres long out in the water, and they were swirling around. You could see them by day, but at night time, they were connected to special equipment. They then changed colour, and you had points of coloured light and other shapes sort of swirling around in the water like glowworms or whatever. So that was interesting. But probably the most interesting thing is something else that I brought back from Los Angeles, from Hollywood. Just above my head there, you'll see a puff of white spray.
Yep.
That's the water cannon. Now, it's beside the cascade, right beside part of the cascade, in a deep well about the size of a dining room table. and with an edge around that you can sit on. Again, it was sensitized, and so if you sat on the edge of that well, after a few seconds, you'd notice the water, which was calm, start to boil a bit and rumble, and you did have sounds of rumbling coming up through, and the water was starting to boil. And all of a sudden, a basketball-sized glob of water was cannonized right up into the air, maybe 20 meters or so, and then it would come back down and splash into the cascade. And so that was just another exciting thing that was in that cascade to keep people's interest.
Anyone ever get hit by that round glob of water as it comes back down?
Actually, there was one. It couldn't have been anything worse, but the Japanese television system were over taking special photos of Expo, and they set up their cameras beside the cascade, and they didn't quite know what to expect, because unfortunately where they set up the camera in the edge of the cascade was right where the water cannon comes down, and right on top of this camera. And there might have been others, but that was the most important one, I suppose, the fact that it's not wanted, but anyway, it was fun.
That's a great story, Laurie.